And then she says the words that stops my downward spiral. Yeah, you know what, John? Just our new normal. And she baselined my entire existence with those two words. Inspiration in the Latin means to breathe into it. It's inspiro. It's my duty, obligation, responsibility to breathe life into other, to inspire. Comparison is the thief. As soon as I begin comparing myself to someone else, I've already lost because I've lost my individuality.
Meet Andrew. He's standing by the office coffee machine when his direct report leans in. This new company has no idea how we build relationships. All they care about are dashboards and playbooks. Andrew lets out a dry laugh. Yeah, it's like they're trying to fix what isn't broken. And just like that, he's in it. More venting, more frustration, more eye rolls about the new acquisition, new leadership, changing org charts. Andrew joins in. As he walks away with coffee in his hand, he immediately feels regret. Andrew knows better. As director of business development for a multinational retail company, he's supposed to steady the room, not darken it. But lately, he feels just as unsettled as everyone else. He's worked at the company for 8 years. He's poured himself into it. He's found new customers and built trust amongst his team. But now with new leadership, there are new systems, new expectations, new opinions. And the question that keeps coming to his mind is, does the work we've done even matter? The worst part is when the anxiety spills over in his team, he feeds it rather than leads through it. And at home, his wife feels the distance. They're happily married, newlyweds, but often he finds that he can't be present. He's replaying conversations over and over again. He can't leave work at work because he's worried about what's coming next. And this is more than just about job security. What Andrew wants is to be able to lead through change with clarity, with courage, and with a lot less fear. Today, I'm speaking with John Register, Hall of Fame keynote speaker, Paralympic silver medalist, Army combat veteran, and leadership expert. After an injury during Olympic training led to amputation, John didn't stay stuck in loss. He rebuilt, became a 2-time Paralympian, and now helps leaders navigate irreversible change with courage and conviction. And I can't wait to hear how John would help someone like Andrew let go of what no longer serves him and lead through change rather than resist it. My name is Jay Abbasi, and welcome to Unstuck. Real people, real stories, real solutions. While the details are changed to protect anonymity, what you just heard is based on a true story of challenges that come up in the real world. And we discuss how to navigate these environments with practical tips to help you get unstuck and build a more fulfilling, impactful, and balanced life and career. So John, I'm so curious to hear your story directly from you because I read about it. And it's fascinating. You were training for the Olympic Games, and take me back. You then had an experience that led to a life-altering decision. And I would just love for you to start by telling that story for our audience.
Yeah, Jay, thank you. I appreciate it. And thanks for having me on. Listen, in order to get to that level, there's, with your audience that's out there and all these amazing leaders, have to kind of come at it from let's build the foundation of it. Because on that day, May 17th, 1994, I lost 2 careers with one wrong step. And that really, I think, helps us to understand the psyche that goes into it, as well as, how I deliver and how I teach about it now. But I need to get you to understand, what level I was at. So I was a 3-time All-American at the University of Arkansas, track and field. Every year we were there, that I was there, part of the Razorback track and field team, the Razorbacks won a national championship in track. So think about that. That's not excellence. That's sustained excellence. John McDonald, the most winningest coach in NCAA history, any sport, won 42 national championships. So that's a psyche. That is a system. That is how I think about things. Olympians were on that team, and then it's just an ecosystem of excellence. So when you're in that, you're not thinking about it. You're actually just executing on it. So that's one. Then I wanted to continue in that, and I joined the United States Army to continue with running track and field. So I went to the Olympic trials in 1988 and also in 1992. But the second time I was in the Army's world-class athlete program, because that was my way for, I thought maybe the Army could be my sponsor. They have a world-class athlete program. I made that program. My NGB, the National Governing Body of Sport, showed me that, or told USA Track and Field that I would be one of the ones to watch. So I got put on that team. But on the way going out to my training session, Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm came up, and I was diverted to the Gulf War. So here I am doing something at a very high level, very excellent, the highest, when you make the Olympic trials, you met the Olympic standard. And now I'm going to be one of less than, 3% that actually, when they join up in service, actually go to war, right? Go to a conflict. So that's a whole other area of how do you think about shift and change when you were supposed to do this one thing, but now you get diverted to this other. And one of the issues I learned in Desert Shield, Desert Storm is a lot of times we wave the flag, especially here in the United States, right? Wave the flag, and we talk about how we love America. But when you're in combat, you're not thinking about any of those things. And only 3% of Americans actually know that, or less. You're thinking about getting your buddy out of that battle fight. You're not thinking about your country. You're not thinking about the Constitution. You're not thinking about none of it until you get back home to safety. That's what you're thinking about, how to get out of the firefight. And I don't think we talk about that enough in the decision-making process of what is the most critical thing at the least common denominator. So I'm back from the war, don't have a scratch. I'm training for my third Olympic trials, this time in the 400-meter hurdles on the Army's world-class athlete program. I love the military. I'm going to be a lifer in the military. I've taken the officer selection battery test. I have been boarded by a group of officers. I'm about to go to Fort Benning School for Girls and Boys down in Georgia to become a military officer. But the wind's blowing hard in Hays, Kansas, and I'm on the world-class athlete program team. I am trying to qualify for my next games. And I go over the third hurdle in a training session in the 400-meter hurdles, and I misstep the hurdle. I land wrong. I hyperextend my left leg. The hyperextension caused a disruption to the popliteal artery. And 7 days later, I'm left with a choice. Either keep my leg and use a walker or a wheelchair for the rest of my life, or amputate the leg, use a prosthesis for the rest of my life. And what kind of choice is that? 2 careers, misstepped 1 hurdle, and it's all gone. So what happens when everything that you have worked for, everything that you see, you can clearly see the path, is taken away? Not by somebody else taken away, but because of something that you did that shifted the dynamic. And so that's the understanding of where I come from when I begin to talk about this, because I wasn't just ready to jump up and get back in the fight again. I was questioning my identity. Who am I now? What is my identity? Is my wife going to stick around? Is my son still going to see me as his father? Do I still have a job in the military? Can I support my family? I mean, my Olympic dreams are over. My military career is gone. What do we do when we have lost everything that has made us who we are? And that's where I believe the story actually begins for our conversation.
Wow, John. And you mentioned there were some things that you went through before all these things happened that helped you to cultivate the kind of mindset to, I guess, be No one could be fully prepared for something like this. However, you bounced, I don't want to say bounce back, but you found a way to work through the adversity.
I did bounce a couple of times on the track.
But like you get my, like, what were some of the things that you feel influenced your mindset to be able to work through that adversity and then be able to achieve so much even after this incident?
Well, number one, I think I know I have a strong belief in God, very strong belief there. And I knew I was not being designed to be a 20-year career military officer. I knew I was not being designed to run the hurdles in the Olympic Games because I only have one leg now. And that is I think the reckoning that I had to come to, that I was not going to be able to move forward with the current dreams that I had. So I was beginning to start camping out in the what ifs. What if I just didn't run that hurdle? What if I just would have run around it? But you can't do the what ifs because that's not the reality of what actually happened or of what can actually take place. And it was really a godsend. My wife, Alice, she comes and she sees me struggling with all those questions I had, I just articulated. And she sees me, I'm out there, I'm in this wheelchair. I can't get out of the chair. I got my arms and one leg, and I was watching her, my wife, my son playing the swings, my wife and my son playing the swings, and I can't push myself out of that chair. And that was the gravity of the loss that I felt in that reckoning moment. It was so heavy that I just didn't know what the next step forward was. And then Alice came over. She's, kneels down beside the chair, wraps her arms around me, and she says, "What is going on?" And that's when I articulated to her everything that was in my head the night before. And then she says the words that stops my downward spiral. Yeah, you know what, John? Just our new normal. And she baselined my entire existence with those two words. And that's the mindset I began to adopt. And I know most people during the pandemic threw away the term the new normal. But what I began to do was use it as a power force, because I understand that most people, myself included, present company included, once we have something that we think is overused, we start discarding it. So I have learned to begin to take what is overused and use it as a baseline. So when I say new normal, I break the two words down, new and normal. New means no prior point of reference. So if new is no prior point of reference, I've never had an amputation before. That's new. If we floated, to the pandemics, when we went through the pandemic, no one had been through a pandemic before. That's new. When we enter into a new environment, a new decision that we made, we do not know what's coming up. We can maybe anticipate some of the things, but we haven't lived it. We haven't gone through it. The new executive, the new CEO. I just got the role of the CEO, and now I'm in the role, and it's new. I have to learn it. Normal is the everyday typical occurrence of a thought or an action. So I still need rituals. I still need a rhythm. I still need to have some type of a rhythm that elevates me to a rise that develops the pathway to go forward. I still need those systems in place, but they're just different systems. There are different ways to do things. I'm not going to walk with two warm-blooded legs. So you know what? I get a prosthetic. I can walk on a prosthetic. So I have to learn how to do those things. I need space and grace to grow while I'm learning. So that's the new normal in my book. What's it in yours? That's how we do it. Do you just discard things like that? Do you just discard uncertainty when we say uncertainty? Or do we say that, you know what? When do we ever have uncertainty? Or when do we ever have certainty? Right? We've never had it. And so why do we always go with the crowd of what says, oh, it's uncertain times? It's always been uncertain times.
I love it, John. I'm so with you on this. I say that to people all the time. I say, yeah, tell me the last time when you had certainty. Yeah. When was that? Because I don't think it's ever been experienced in human history. Have we ever had certainty? And what I love about this idea of the new normal is it brings, especially for our listeners, like, you have AI disruption you have all of these technological advancements, whatever's coming from the federal government to the way industries are changing rapidly. But if we take John's advice here and say, you know what, we're going to embrace it as the new normal, it doesn't mean we have to resign to things we don't agree with, right, John? It's more of just, this is what we have right now. This is the current state. Let's figure out how to optimize it and improve it and make the most out of it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's just wrote down here. I was, and I haven't thought about this, but certainty, in most cases, I think, is just arrogance.
Yeah.
I mean, really, we're being arrogant about. I know it's going to happen. I've been here before, and so we get in arguments all the time. I've been working at this company for 20 years, 10 years, 12 years, whatever. I've seen it done before. So then that limits the new. That limits the new, as you just said, Jay, AI coming into play, or Gen AI, or agents that are coming around the corner, because you've seen it before 20 years ago when it was just coming on. We didn't have it in the market like we have today. So, but you've seen it before. It's arrogance. It's not learning. We talk about the cup half empty or cup half full. Can we be thankful that there's something in the cup? And if my cup is all the way full, then I can't be poured into. I just make a mess because it splatters all over the place.
Right.
So I'd rather be like a sieve, right? So you're pouring into my cup, but at the same time, I'm pouring out. So there's always a pour, because I can direct the pour that's going. I can water that flower over there. I can water this person. I can add value. I can add life. I can breathe into this individual. And I think that's how we need to think about how uncertainty is our advantage, actually. And so we want to show up in those times to know that we need help to look around the corners.
Yeah. And I think, John, one of the things that people get caught up with is they want to have control over the way things go.
Yeah.
They struggle to let go of what was their previous normal. How do you recommend people who have that tendency to resist change, to want to control things? How do they work through that? How do they work through that mentally? How do they work through that emotionally?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit different for everybody. I really thought long and hard about the question. It took me many, many years to come to what I understand in my life, and that's what I help other people navigate through. It's nothing new. It's just the way that I processed it, right? Other people say it differently, but I think there's a state, kind of a homeostasis that we're trying to get to, and that state is restored. Restoration. We're trying to get to a state of restoration or a state of resonance. And there are three ways. I think there are three things what we have to go through. The first, I already shared, that is the reckoning. The reckoning moment. You hurdle it when you actually grieve what you believe you have lost. So I lost the leg, I lost the career, I lost the military, I lost my athletic career. All those things were gone. I had to grieve that loss. And once I was able to do that, now I can move into a revision. The revision is casting multiple visions, ways that we can think about, I'm not going to be an Olympic class athlete, but maybe I can become a Paralympic athlete. I didn't even know about the Paralympic Games before my injury. Paralympic Games are those games for athletes with physical disabilities and visual impairment. Unlike the Special Olympics, which are for cognitive disabilities, I knew about the Special Olympics, didn't know about the Paralympics, which are the parallel games to the Olympics. Who knew? And so after swimming for physical therapy, I actually made the Paralympic swim team. So I didn't know this. And then, so that's a whole nother transition into a vision. I wasn't even thinking about swimming, and now I'm a Paralympic swimmer, and I see athletes running on the track, and I go back to the track and win a Paralympic silver medal in the long jump in Sydney, Australia. So all these iterations come because I cast a new vision on what is possible. So we have to have new visions that are out there all the time, and multiple. It's not a binary choice. It's not either you choose this or choose that. No, you put a myriad up there. There are three forces that hold us back: other people, society, and ourselves. Those three forces can hold us back from making the call, making the decision. And the decisions, once we actually make that call and we actually make a commitment to it, we're now in what I call the renewal of it. The renewal is very difficult because it begins with a rebirth. It's closely tied to the reckoning, but it's not. The reckoning you can kind of spin out and camp out because you haven't grieved the loss. In the renewal, you've actually made the commitment to a choice that you have made. When the doctor amputates my left leg, I do not get my leg back. When you make a true commitment, you cannot go back to the way it used to be. It is impossible. You have set the direction, and now you have to give yourself time to understand what this new is. You're no longer an expert. When, what's a good example? Michael Jordan had to reinvent himself, right? Because he no longer could be the Air Jordan and jump and sky. So he developed that fadeaway jumper, and he worked on it over and over and over and over again, kind of taking himself out of the game in order to insert himself back in to be dominant with that. Tiger Woods is the same thing. Wants to work on his drive. So he takes himself out of the game, rewires the entire drive, comes back in, and now on Sunday he's crushing everybody, and you're still terrified of him coming because he took himself out, he made a commitment, he learned what he needed to learn, and he inserts himself back in to dominate. That's what we're talking about when we make a true commitment. Take yourself out of the game, learn what you need to learn, get the people around you who you need to get around you, and then insert yourself back in to dominate where you're supposed to be in that new normal existence. And once you do that, now you are in congruence. You are in a state of resonance. You have restored what was no longer there, and you're in a new state. And so that's how I look and explain how I went through that process of the reckoning, revision, and renewal as it pertained to my life as an amputee.
You said it before, how much your faith is involved in all of this.
Yeah.
Plus, what you just shared there gives me the sense that meaning is important. In other words, what is the meaning we're giving to our situation? If we're falling into victim mindsets and we're saying, oh my God, the world is against me. Oh my God, everything is moving so fast. There's so much uncertainty. The meaning is I am at the mercy of whatever is happening. However, you seem to appropriate such a powerful and positive meaning, even when things are challenging and difficult. So how much is meaning playing a role in all of this, John?
Yeah, I think, meaning, I've heard it, purpose, how I look at it, and it's been coined already by Dr. Martin Seligman, and, the father of positive psychology. I guess that's where it would fit now. And we can go down these rabbit holes and a negative mindset, or the woe is me, instead of why did this happen to me, instead of, well, why not? It should have happened to me, right? And I think one of the things that challenges me in this state is, or where I think we need to kind of go down to the least common denominator, is breath. What do I mean by that? Well, inspiration, my company's called Inspired Communications International. I used to hate the word inspiration. And the reason I hate the word inspiration was because of how it showed up in my life after I had my amputation. So before, if I did a long jump or a hurdle race and set a record, I would wind up on the evening news or in the newspaper. A sports reporter would write about it and say, John registered this amazing feat. It was awesome. Set a new record at the distance at Arkansas. And that's how the story would come out. When I became a Paralympic athlete, if a reporter was sent over, I would wind up in the human interest story as a human interest story. I became the soft spot at the close of all this bad news because I was the inspiration. So everybody was elevating on my back saying, oh, there's such an inspirational story. You make us all feel so good about ourselves. And those kind of little microaggressions that people don't really think that they're there.
Yeah.
You make me feel happy about myself. Oh, I'm so sorry for you. It's good to see you out and about. Those type of things were being said, and it just got under my skin. And then there was a woman and her two children in an airport. They came up to me. I had my artificial leg. I was just coming back from Sydney, Australia, from after winning the silver medal. I had the medal with me, but I had my running leg with me as well. And she comes up, she says, "Hey, my children, they're so fascinated by your artificial leg." And they were talking about, they were calling me Robot Man. I could hear them out there. So they came over, and and everybody else is leaning in on the conversation too. And she says, they're so fascinated by your leg. Can you tell them what happened? And throughout the whole problem, I won't get the whole story, but through the process, what I came to understand, Jay, is that just because I was sitting in the airport wearing shorts, had my artificial leg in tow, and they could see my artificial leg, somebody was being inspired to act. So it began shifting the way I thought about inspiration. And so I began doing a little more deep dive and researching on the word. And I'm coming to breath. So inspiration in the Latin means to breathe into. It's inspiro, to breathe into. And so when my God has breathed life into me to cause life to exist, in order to reflect and mirror reflect that image, it's my duty, obligation, responsibility to breathe life into others, to inspire to them, to cause them to have their own life, and to let them know that somebody out there sees you and honors your existence, because of no one else can do what you do. And so if I can breathe life into you to do what you do and elevate that, then a lot of stuff goes away, because we understand what our mission is, what our purpose is, what we're called, our mindset is called to do. And that's my whole mission, is to do that, is to release people to understand that they are powerful beyond measure, that they are there to uplift others. So it's very easy for me to identify those individuals who are doing that and those individuals who are taking things away from people, right? Because a plant is either growing or it's dying. You're either adding life to a plant or the plant is dying. It's either growing or it's decaying. What they say in Shawshank Redemption? Either get busy living or get busy dying, right?
Right.
So it's that simple. And so what we need to be doing as leaders, as executives, is we need to be breathing life into our companies, and that companies don't run except by the people who are running those aspects of the company. So breathing life into them to let them, we've hired them, so let them run with what it is their gifting is for the company. And it's very hard to do when we're focused in on ourselves and we're focused in on what we are supposed to do, and we want to do everything. We have to release it and let other people operate in their gifts.
Yeah. Powerfully stated. I completely agree with the idea of people falling into the self-absorption and that being the problem. And we have to learn how to let what it is that we want, and we want to control everything. We have to learn how to let that go. You also refer to the people around us and how that can be influencing how we show up. And I think that's something I wanted to ask you about related to the story of Andrew. And he was with one of his direct reports, I believe, who was falling into that negative spiral, complaining. This new company's coming in, trying to change everything. And he finds himself agreeing and going into that negative talk. And so how do you recommend leaders deal with that? Because there's this part of people, what I noticed, John, is that they do so because they want to connect, right? They want to connect with someone, right? However, as a leader, that can be problematic.
Yeah. Andrew is I think he's in a spot that a lot of executives find themselves in. And I don't know all the circumstances, why is he talking this way? Maybe that's a good friend of his that he's talking to them. And he's in a leadership position. He's been there 8 years, and maybe the other person's there. I don't know. But to stick to the kind of storyline, how I would invite Andrew to think about this is he really hasn't fully accepted that the old way is gone. And that's the reckoning, right? He's venting just in denial with an audience. So kind of birds of a feather flock together. And it's very easy to go into that. It's so easy. That's the second part. I would call that it is a reckoning, but it's in the same part in the revision I briefly mentioned getting away from other people and society. So the other people is other people believing for you what you can or cannot do, which is often based upon what you believe you could or could not. It's often believes of what they think they could do if they were in your situation. So we begin to have these conversations that just don't go anywhere. They just go back and forth, and no one's making a decisive decision on it. Or society, right? That's the way the culture is. So therefore, I got to show up as a culture. And if I buck against the system, buck against the culture, I might be outcast. So I conform to the culture. And so that's kind of the reckoning revision on both those, because he has a choice now. Does he defend the past, or does he design a new future? And so that's the revision that he's got to, he has to come to. And the new company, brings in systems. He's trying to bring relationships. His values becoming this bridge, and he can't be the resistor to this any longer, right? So he's got to make that commitment, that choice in this after the revision process. So in the renewal is where the commitment actually shows up. He's no longer the expert. He has to deal while learning. So he has to get out of that. He has to break away and maybe go back and recalibrate with person at the water cooler. You know what? I know we got to this conversation. What might you do to help us get out of this? What are some of the ideas that you might have? And so then now we start going to solution orientation, right? Of what, we had the banter around the water cooler. So how will we fix it? Let's why don't we just take, another 5 minutes and just whiteboard it and just what we do in this situation to solve the problem, because you never know. Let's bring in Sarah, let's bring in Jim, let's bring in Jerome, let's bring in Julie, and then now we're looking at solutions, because like we said earlier in the conversation, there is no certainty. We have to create it through the people that we hang out with, and in this uncertain times, now we can certainly create a direction of how we're going to actually operate this, and then he's got a good team around with him. And so that brings us back to restoration, because now he can regulate the room again. Excuse me, as a leader, that's called to lead his direct reports.
Yeah. Well, there's a few things there I want to highlight, because there's some tactical, specific ways a leader can handle these moments. These are important moments, John. The moment when your direct report comes to you complaining about something, and there's a part of you that kind of agrees, right? Which you have to come to terms with, right? The first thing, I think what I heard from you is it's okay to acknowledge if someone's upset. It's okay to acknowledge, like, okay, thank you for sharing that with me. The next thing you went to, though, John, which I love, is curiosity. You went right into questions. And the curiosity needs to be fueled by, what can we do from here? And this is actually very similar to what you were saying before about the new normal. The question itself establishes the new normal, right? Which is to say, okay, I hear you. And how are we going to find ways to work through this? What options are available to us? Which is in itself establishing the new normal and inviting the other person to come up with solutions rather than to continue complaining.
Yeah, that's right. We become part of the solution for it. I mean, yeah, we all do it. We all become negative at times, right? But can we exercise the muscle that turns the corner? And sometimes it's difficult, because when I get emotional about something, I don't want to turn the corner. I want to stay in it. Like, you got to hear my way. And I got to get my point across, right? I do a lot. I want my wife to hear my point all the time. She always wins.
Well, there's also this part of it too, which is he feels like, oh, well, none of the work he did before matters. So I can relate to that, John. When I worked, this is years ago in corporate, we would spend months on an initiative. We would say, all right, we're going to be coming up with this new training program to really help integrate a new product into, let's say, the Tesla stores. This is when I worked for Tesla years ago. And we would work on it for months and months. And I'd put so much time and effort into it. And then a decision would be made by the executive team. We are now pivoting, moving into a completely different direction, and everything you did before is no longer going to be applicable. So the emotion that you were just describing, I felt that passion for, wait a minute, I put all of this work into it. It's hard to let go, right, John? I mean, it's hard to just be able to just let go of that.
Yeah, and that's why I usually my hat's right here too. I just put on the thing I didn't realize was there. It says amputate to elevate. And that's the reason of my keynote, right? It's and people used to challenge me saying, that's kind of harsh. I said, yes, because amputations hurt. And when you put all that time and effort in, and all of a sudden you're no longer going to do it, that feels like an amputation. That it's visceral, and you have to now that thing is gone. How do you move forward? What do you need to put on to salve the wound and to move forward? And when I had my amputation, I had phantom pain to go back to a previous state that's no longer there. I can still feel the leg. I can still feel the pain of the leg. And maybe I've taken it to something. Maybe you lose a loved one. The person lost a loved one out there, and you still feel the pain of that loss, even though that person is gone 2, 3, 4 years now, and you still feel it, right? That's a phantom pain for that. You feel the loss of the visceral loss of the job at Tesla, and the whole thing pivots. You've been working on this for 2, 3 years, and all of a sudden you just pivot. The first person that cut me from baseball when I was a great, really good baseball player, wasn't going to pick me for the high school team. Told me that in the hallway as a freshman, right? I just batted 800 the previous season in 8th grade, and now in junior pony, and now the head coach is not going to pick me for the team. Still, there's phantom pains that go back to that, because it puts a what if in the equation. What if he would have selected me? Would my life have turned out this way? Would I have made the majors? All these what ifs come up. So the amputation really begins with amputating those what ifs.
Yeah.
How do we get rid of the what ifs?
You mentioned before, you brought up Michael Jordan, and I was just thinking about his story about how he didn't make varsity his freshman year.
Right.
Is that right? Yeah. And he that didn't stop him though, did it? If that was something where he held on to it and he stayed in that mindset of being the victim and he just let it take over, he wouldn't be what I consider the best basketball player in the history of basketball. And he even, but you were saying phantom pain. He even talked about it in his Hall of Fame speech. It was something he brought up. Like, he still feels the frustration that he didn't make that team. Now, he channeled that energy into something that led to huge accomplishments. He might be holding on a little bit of too much resentment, in my opinion. He could let some stuff go. But I do think we could learn from how he didn't use that as a way to fall into a negative spiral. He used it as a motivator.
Yeah, when I'm thinking about our conversation right now and just that question, I started thinking about how we are each one uniquely created individually, right? And so who or what are we comparing ourselves to? If we're individuals, if we are designed to do one great thing on this earth, in this world, that no one else can do, why then are we comparing ourselves to other individuals? Because comparison is the thief.
Yeah.
As soon as I begin comparing myself to someone else, I've already lost, because I've lost my individuality. Anytime I am comparing myself with whatever it is, I'm not the best cook. According to who? To who? Who are you comparing yourself to? Oh, I'm not the fastest runner. To who? Why do you need to be fastest? So as soon as all these races and things that we get into, it perpetuates this. I need to compare. We compare eras, like, is it LeBron James? Is it Michael Jordan? Is it Pistol Pete? Is it, and Wilt Chamberlain had more rings than all those guys, right? All those folks. So you have all these comparisons, and it doesn't really mean anything, because you can't. Number one, I come back and say you can't compare eras. You just can't. It's just they played in that era, and they were the greatest in that era, and the other person played in that era. And if that era hadn't existed, does this era actually come into fruition? So it sells a lot, right? You get people on TV going back and forth, but you really can't. You can't. There's no end state to it. That's why it works so well, because there is no end state to the argument. You get 5 people on this side and 5 people on that side, and you can go all day with their notes on it. But it doesn't resolve anything because it never can be resolved. And that's the brilliance of sports shows like that, or anything, of reality shows. You can't come to a resolve because you always have something that's going to be compared against, and therefore you can have an argument, left versus right, up versus down. And so I'm just saying, I know that's not ever going to go away, but really look at who you are as an individual and what you were specifically designed to do. Because purpose, as my friend Jade Simmons says, is not what you do or what you're designed to do, but what other people do because you do what you do.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And I think that it's one of those things with comparison, the sports example, you could play around with it a little bit just for fun, but as long as you don't take it as something so serious to where you use comparison as a way to measure your own worth, that's where it becomes really problematic. Yeah. When wherever you are in your life, that's the chapter that you're on. And how can your chapter, if it's a chapter 3, be compared to someone else's chapter 15? It sounds crazy that we do this. Another angle I often take with people, John, is there's really no such thing as a life that's better than your life, because your life is yours. It's uniquely yours. How can you be comparing your life to another life? There's no similarities. The experiences that person has will never be the experiences you have. So the only thing you can do when it comes to comparison is continuously consider how to improve yourself day in and day out.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's mostly true. Like, because we are individuals, right? And that's the thing. I think where there's a challenge to it, right? Is I was just having a conversation with who was it? Who was I? We were talking about, I know what it was we were talking about World War II. I wasn't talking about it. I wasn't involved in the conversation. They were talking about their grandparents that fought, the grandfather that fought in World War II. And it was some amazing stories. I mean, there was really great stories. And this person was actually at the pier in her life where the grandfather actually charged the beach, right? I mean, and wow. Because he chose to do this one particular action, I won't get into the whole story. She's here today because of that, right? Amazing stories. And so we're talking to this AI person, this guy, that's how we got into the conversation, who is able to now capture those essence and actually have those conversations in the tone and the mannerism of the person that actually did the battle. Incredible.
Wow.
So that's one aspect of it. And my challenge to him was to say, I had people that served in World War II as well. Different experience. The records aren't as accurate. There were at least on record 5 people that were lynched in their military uniforms when they came back, especially in the South. They did not get access to the GI Bill. So that created a separation of who got access to housing. And so it created a wealth gap. So a very different experience that had coming back, yet still their family, their children, their children's children still serve our country and protect our nation against all enemies, to protect not the nation, protect the United States Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and bear true faith and allegiance to the same without any hesitation, reservation, purpose of evasion. So my question becomes at that point, let's get the AI right so that I too can have those stories come out. Whenever Tom Hanks makes a great movie, I love his movies, but there's never a movie about the entirety of what has happened. And like from his vantage point, is he still alive because the Tuskegee Airmen kept the planes up in the air on the bombing runs to Berlin, sacrificing themselves and their people because the other pilots couldn't make the rendezvous points? Right? And so we have these conversations of comparison, but we have to compare true lines of not comparing, but we tell the true stories that are out there, because those individual stories actually elevates us not to be in a comparative mode. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
it does. It does. Well, I feel like stories are the best teachings in general.
Yeah.
A great story can help us through comparison. A great story, and
Yes.
clearly, John, from what I'm gathering from you, is you're a fantastic storyteller, and the stories you tell are the things that I'm going to retain following our conversation. And I wanted to invite you to consider, if you were to have met Andrew, who's in this
Yeah.
story, and if you were to, let's say he opened up to you, he told you a story. Maybe it was after one of your keynotes, and you come off stage, and he comes up to you and he's like, here's what I'm going through, John.
Yeah.
You listen to him and you have an opportunity to ask him a question or two to get him to think differently. What would you ask him, John? And why would you ask him that?
I think you said it earlier, Jay, and that is to begin with curiosity, um, and begin the shift. And a question might be, why is this so important to you at this point?
Mm,
Um, where would you like to take this organization? What's the resolve that you really want to happen here?
yeah.
What's the pathway that what do you think the first step might be? And so
Yeah.
I think those questions are, it gets us to really get to solutions and get to curiosity of what the solution is, because I really want that for him, right? Coming off the stage. And I've had people snip me off the stage with a lot of deep questions, right? Or making a telephone call to somebody that's in their family that is struggling with questions like this, to the point of, my 9-year-old is about to have an amputation because of, sarcoma, and he's got
Wow.
cancer. And could you call him and just encourage him? Absolutely. And I never say that's the right or wrong thing to do. That's not my call. What it is just to kind of listen and be there for that moment in time. Uh, and even though that moment comes on a date on a calendar, which is Chronos time, which the Greeks call Chronos time, it's showing up for me as Kairos time, Kairos, Kairos, which means it happens when it's supposed to happen. So when I come
Mm,
off that stage and it happens, I need to be operating in that Kairos time to make sure that I'm showing up when that person needs me at that point. And I need them just as much. That's the connection that we have one with each other. That's when my individuality meets their individuality, and we are no longer comparison. We're trying to help elevate other individuals. I go back to saying, is if we are meeting people that are taking us out of it, that are causing us angst, that are causing us um, uh, breath leaving our body, and we're
yeah.
scrambling for oxygen, we need to get away from those individuals,
Yeah.
because that they can't be operating after an elevation of a creator, because a creator is always creating stuff. It's always creating life in them and in others. And if we're trying to hold that and restrict it and say, only I get this and only I get that, that's causing oxygen to be left, to be taken out of the room. And I think
Yeah.
it's just as easy as and simple as that.
Yeah. And I have that visual stuck in my mind from what you explained before about uh, the water that gets poured in and then gets then delivered out. What was the word that you call
I
that?
use it as like a sieve, right? You know how you have when you have like the siphon, right? You're taking the siphon is the thing. Your car ran out of gas, and so you got to siphon some more gas into it
Yeah.
someplace. So that's kind of like the thing. But it's the pour, right? So you're pouring into a vessel, and at the
Yeah.
same time it's being poured out. So
It's being poured
it's
out.
always half empty, half full,
I love it.
because
Because
it's always moving.
as you were describing that, John, I was just picturing it because the way in which you described when someone asked you to make that call to the 9-year-old, and the way in which you would ask Andrew to consider why he wants to do this, and what's the solution. That's you taking in the water and then bringing it right back out in practice. Right. And it's beautiful. And for our listeners, I really recommend look up the great work John is doing. John, you are a phenomenal Hall of Fame keynote speaker. And for anyone who's ever looking for a great speaker, I think John would be an excellent addition. And the website that you recommended people go to was johnregister.beehive.com. And that's spelled JOHNREGISTER.BEEHIIVE.com. And from there, there's some great information for people to check out.
Yeah. I'm always trying to figure that thing out. So I'm not sure there's an E on the other side of that thing, but
we'll put it into the show notes.
Yeah, so show notes, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be in the show notes. We'll have the right one there for people. And of course, johnregister.com is also a great place to go to learn.
Absolutely,
more.
Yeah. BEEHIIV.com.
Oh, there's no E at the end.
Got it. No E at the end. That's it. Absolutely.
Got it. Well, John, I really thank you so much for taking time out of your day. This was a phenomenal conversation. I appreciate you.
Thank you, sir.
When we recorded this conversation, John and I had to deal with some unexpected change. Riverside was not working. There was an outage. And so we had to record via Zoom. And John lived what he teaches. He was adjustable. Everything worked out fine. And in the end, we were able to capture a great conversation. So I'm going to share what I believe are 3 insights and 3 actionable takeaways you can take from this conversation. First insight, certainty is often just arrogance. If you believe that you have certainty around what's going to unfold, you have knowledge that no one else appears to have. Because the truth is, nothing is certain. And if you have a full cup, then you can't be poured into. Better to embrace uncertainty than to pretend there's certainty. Second insight, new normal is a framework, not a cliche. When we say the word new, what we're saying is there's no prior point of reference. And normal is the routines, the rituals that you have, but just apply differently. And if you can continue to adapt to the new normal, then you're going to thrive through chaos rather than be stifled by it. Third insight, amputate the what ifs. He talked about how anger and loss create what those who've experienced actual amputation call phantom pain. And the real work is around learning how to move forward by amputating all the what ifs, all the concerns that you're projecting about the future. And it's also letting go of the way things could have been if it went the way you wanted it to. It's really a practice of letting go. Speaking of practice, we'll get into 3 actionable takeaways. The first one is the 5 stages he talked about. First was reckon, then revise, rebirth, resolve, and renew. When facing irreversible change, first we grieve what we lost. That's the reckoning. Then there's visions about what's possible. That's when there's the revise, which then leads to the rebirth. And then ultimately, we get to renewal, reinserting yourself into what will then be your new normal. Second actionable takeaway, turn complaints into curiosity. When others come to you venting, complaining, it's okay to acknowledge them. Then ask them questions to look at it from multiple angles and consider positive outcomes or opportunities to move things in a positive direction. Third actionable takeaway, breathe life into people. As a leader, your job isn't just to manage, not just to manage the team, it's to inspire. And he talked about how that word inspire means breathe into. When you think about having someone on your team, sure, you hire them to do a job, but if you attempt to control the way they do things or control the way things are, you're not really empowering them. Instead, look to them to let them share their gifts with the world and shine their light. That's why they're there. So empower them, inspire them to do that. Join us on Friday. I'm going to break down how to have those conversations. We're going to literally go through, okay, when someone says things are going wrong, they're frustrated, they're venting to you, they're complaining, what does it actually sound like to redirect that conversation? You don't want to minimize them and make them feel that they're not heard or they're not understood. And you also don't want to vent with them either. So I'm going to guide you through what to say, and just as important, how to say it. Don't miss that conversation that we will have on Friday. And until next time, thank you so much for listening.